Kind of hard to know until it happens. But the other big issue that we have going on is the debt ceiling crisis, where the Republicans are refusing to raise the debt ceiling.
The sky is falling.
Boom. Now, understand, we covered this last time. The debt ceiling, the way it works is we already sat down, our government already sat down and said, this is the budget, this is what we're going to spend. And then we got to a point where we needed to raise the debt ceiling, right? Borrow more money, right? Issue more debt, right? So we can pay for that. We've already paid this. This is already money that we owe. The argument now is, do we raise our debt limit so that we can actually pay our bills? If we don't, then we default on our credit, which could be economically a global catastrophe. Well, it could be, it would be at that point. But the Republicans are doing it because they want to cut spending and stuff. But what's funny about this is it's kind of unclear what they want to cut. So let's see what they're saying about what it is that they want to cut. So first I'm going to look at, this is CNBC. It's a show called Squawk Box. And they have Joe Scarborough on, who's also on CNBC. But Joe Scarborough's a fiscal conservative. So we're going to have, this isn't Joe, this is whoever the host of Squawk Box is. But let's see what Joe Scarborough says.
Joining us is Joe Scarborough, the host of MSNBC's Morning Joe. Joe, the other Joe, that is, it's great to see you. We don't have the other Joe this morning, so we're thrilled to have you. And specifically because I think we're all trying to figure out what's actually happening in Washington, D.C. right now, between the relationship between Kevin McCarthy and the White House and that Biden meeting, and what it means for the debt ceiling and everything else. What are you hearing?
Well, I mean, we actually had a positive meeting yesterday, which actually should be reassuring for not only people in Washington, but also on Wall Street. We've seen before where people will walk out of the White House, have a meeting with the president, then have some snarky side swipe. That didn't happen yesterday. Kevin McCarthy came out, talked about a respectful meeting with Joe Biden. Joe Biden did the same. These are two people who obviously understand it's not in their best interest. It's not in their party's best interest. It's not in the economy's best interest for them to have an explosion over the debt ceiling. Right now, though, make no mistake, they have two completely different positions. Kevin McCarthy is saying what Republicans like myself used to say whenever we were going to vote for the debt ceiling. Yes, we'll vote for the debt ceiling. There have to be some structural changes. The Democratic presidents usually don't like to go that way, correctly pointing out we're not paying for debt that we're going to accumulate in the future. We're paying for debt that's already been accumulated on America's credit card. We've got to pay it off. We'll see what happens. McCarthy's margin of error, though, is so small that I find it hard to believe that Democrats aren't going to be able to get 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Republicans, especially from those Biden districts, that aren't going to want the economy to blow up. So at the end of the day, they're going to strike a deal. I don't think they're going to blow up the economy. At the same time, it's going to be really a political high wire act for Kevin McCarthy.
But is this going to be?
Okay, so a couple things he points out, a couple things he didn't point out. So typically it's Republicans who withhold the debt ceiling. Well, always. It's the Democrats. The Democrats have never done this. And they always do it when there's a Democratic president. Right? Because they want to make cuts, but they want to be able to blame the president, right? And if it's their president, they don't want to blame him. So he's kind of missed that point, right? The other point is they'll talk about spending cuts and stuff. Typically what they want is cut Social Security, has always been on the bill. Cut Medicare, Medicaid, right? Those are the big ones. The funny thing that he says about this, and he misses that point, is Social Security and Medicare are self-funded. They're not in the budget. They're separate funds. So cutting them doesn't really save the budget. What it does is it screws the American people over who've paid into it. Right? So that's not really a solution here, right? So there's part of it there. The other part of it he points out, which is true, is in this scenario, Kevin McCarthy, who we saw come out there, and we'll see here again, so the Republicans have a majority in the House of Representatives, but they only have a majority of like 8 people or 9 people, something small. So there's a good chance that the Democrats can get 6 or 7 Republicans to flip in the House, and this goes away. So McCarthy doesn't really have a whole lot of leverage here to do anything. Right now, it's all just kind of BS. So nothing will probably come out of this. This is sort of what he's pointing out. But he's going to ask him this other question real quick, and I want to get through this because this is a good point here.
Be a 3 minutes. Is this going to be a 3 minutes to midnight situation, Joe? And the other piece of it is how much control does Kevin McCarthy have over some members of his party?
Yeah, it's always a 3 minutes till midnight situation. They always wait till the last possible second because McCarthy can't move too quickly. I mean, if McCarthy moves too quickly, then you're going to see the 5, 6, 7 Republican going out and ending a speakership. So they're going to exact some pain from Joe Biden, probably from the markets, but then they're going to get pressured from their contributors at the end of the day, and they're going to do what they always do. They're going to fold at the end, but they're going to make Joe Biden, they're going to make the markets, they're going to make everybody sweat it out a little bit first.
So
businesses nationwide are switching.
So basically, the Republicans, they could probably flip him right now, is what he's saying. Enough Republicans to drop this whole thing, but McCarthy's not going to bring it to a vote until the last second. Why? Because he's going to want to put as much pressure as he can on Biden and make Biden look bad, even at the expense of the market and at the risk to the government. So he's willing to damage your savings and your funds to try and make himself look good. The other thing he sort of semi-alluded to but didn't get into was McCarthy, in order to get the speakership, because he was not popular, he lost whatever it was, a couple dozen votes.
Yeah, I was going to say, they really had to keep going for that to make it transpire.
Right, and he had to give up the farm. So one of the things he gave up was anytime they do a vote, if it doesn't go the way anybody in his party wants, they can do a vote of no confidence in him and have him removed as speaker. So he's always...
Why on earth do you sign up for a deal like that? Like, literally, that's like at your job being like, if I make any errors at all, I just give you, free reign to just can me for, being 5 minutes late or whatever. You don't like the color of my jacket.
Yeah, no, it's not even 5 minutes later. It's
terrible.
Color of your jacket is more apt to what we're doing, right? So, yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I didn't like your hair today, so we're going to vote to get rid of you. So that's what he's going to put himself up against. But he didn't have a choice because no one was going to vote for him. He wasn't going to get the votes. So, I mean, they're really cut off at the knees. So I think Scarborough's probably right on this. I hate to admit it. But yeah, they'll probably wait till the last minute and then it'll just fold. But it's kind of a boring thing when we get into it. But the question is what are they holding the debt ceiling for? What do they really want, right? So here's the majority report, and they are they're looking at a bit where Kevin McCarthy's talking about this, and let's talk about what is it McCarthy's really after, right? So we've used them before. So this is Sam Seder and Emma Vigilant, and they're going to look at McCarthy here real quick.
Here is Kevin McCarthy on with Margaret Brennan.
Is defense spending on the table?
Well, look, I want to make sure we're protected in our defense spending, but I want to make sure it's effective and efficient. I want to look at every single dollar we're spending, no matter where it's being spent. I want to eliminate waste wherever it is.
But when you became speaker, you did come to that agreement I've referenced of capping 24 spending at 22 levels.
Well, look,
so that would call for reductions.
No, I mean, look, you're going to tell me inside defense there's no waste others.
So defense spending
they
is
spend a lot of it. I think everything, when you look at discretionary, is sitting there. It's like every single household. It's like every single state. We shouldn't just print more money. We should balance our budget. So I want to look at every single department. Where can we become more efficient, more effective, and more accountable?
So more efficiencies in Social Security and Medicare as well.
The one thing I want to say, we take Social Security and Medicare off the table.
All right, so that was interesting. Couple points. This is the first time they've held the debt ceiling and said, we want to look at military spending. The Republicans never want to look at military spending.
No, they don't touch that.
And
They don't even think of touching that.
No, and the other thing they kind of got into a problem with is they said, well, let's look at taking it back to 2022, the budget, right? Well, if that's true, then what he's proposing is we need to cut $78 billion from the military right now, which they're not going to do. Their whole spiel in the military is, well, we want to cut spending on woke programs, right? Liberal programs, right? The big one that they've been targeting is the U.S. military has a recruiting program that's designed to recruit more homosexual and transgender people into the military. So they're trying to make the military more inclusive, right? And they're trying to make it more inclusive for more urban kids. And so part of it is their education program. So like the Air Force Academy is still a university. West Point's still a university, right? The Naval Academy is still a university. So they want to add more thoughtful programs to attract more people from urban areas, right? The other thing about gay and transgender kids is this has just been a fact. And the U.S. military has kind of semi-known this for a long time, which is per capita, homosexual and transgender kids volunteer for the military at higher rates than most other groups. And you know why?
Why is that?
Because you have a lot of those kids that grow up in towns and rural areas where they're not accepted, and they just want to get away. And the military is an easy way to do that.
Stick it out.
Right. If you want to get away
Honestly, that was my experience growing up in sort of a smaller town, rural sort of area, not necessarily with, people that were trans or queer identifying in any way, but in general, people that were looking for some reason to get out, whether it's they didn't have grades, didn't want to do any of the kinds of things for a living that were like popular in that area, or whatever, any reason they wanted to ticket out, military service was one of the go-tos for sure.
Absolutely. And if you make the military more inclusive, then it's like, well, now I can go somewhere where I don't have to be afraid. Right. Now I can go somewhere where I can just be myself and be a soldier and do my job.
Right.
Right. The problem with a lot of the Republican agenda on this is, and they like CRT in the military and stuff, which isn't really a thing, but they get all upset about it. But it's like, if you want a military that's just all white men from, rural areas who are conservative and semi-racist, well, you're never going to fill your recruitment quota. There's just not that many of them. They're only 25% of the country. And you're not going to get all of them, right? You're going to have to recruit from other places and other people. And furthermore, don't you want a more diverse military? Because it's more ready, it's more trained, you get different ideas, different thoughts. Don't you want a military that's more educated? Or do you want a military where we're all just, a bunch of idiots that all come from the same place, right?
Well, a bunch of idiots might translate into people that don't think for themselves and might perhaps just be entirely moldable. And
yeah, but there won't be enough. There won't be enough of them. A and B. The bottom line is, it's a new technological military. How many of those guys are you going to fly the F-22 to shoot down the Chinese balloon for no reason? You have to have a lot of math. I mean, you have to be a college graduate just to be a pilot. So, yeah. So it's kind of a pointless exercise that they're going through. And McCarthy's kind of going through that too. And let me show you this. Emma has a good point here in the rest of this clip. And I think Sam does too. And we'll talk about what their opinion is.
Did you know that the Department of the Defense has failed its 5th consecutive audit and is the only, and the U.S. military is the only U.S. government agency to never pass a comprehensive audit?
Yes. Interesting, though, at the end there, we said no Social Security is and Medicare off the table.
Yeah, but they say that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it seems like that's what he's saying. And he did say discretionary spending, which is specifically not Medicare and Social Security. And so now they're having to pretend like they're going to cut the defense budget. I'm all in favor of it. They should cut whatever they can cut from that defense budget. They should do, without a doubt.
So, yeah. What do you think about that? So she's right. The defense budget has never passed an audit. The military has never passed an audit.
That figures.
They just got their 5th one under. They just got their 5th fail card in a row. So that's a good point. And then, of course, the whole point with Medicare and Medicaid and why he's kind of Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, why he's kind of harping on that is because when the debt ceiling started, Donald Trump came out and made a statement about Republicans shouldn't cut Social Security or Medicare. Why? Because Trump knows who his base is, and those people all collect Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. And so once he said that, now the party is completely divided. So we can't go back to attacking Social Security after Trump just said we shouldn't. So McCarthy is walking this tightrope, which is why he's like, well, it's off the table. Unless I can get it, and then it's on the table, but I don't think I can get it. So it's off the table, and I'm not saying that I want to do that, but, you know, and we want to cut the military, but only the woke shit. But what is that, and how do we cut it? I don't know, but, you know, we just want to cut that. So it's all a big, they don't even know what they want. You're going into a negotiation, and you have no idea. We're going to hold the debt ceiling hostage, right? This is literally like...
Well, I got to say, going into a negotiation and not knowing what you want is a surefire way to walk out having your ass handed to you. That is... right? Because you didn't even know what you were going for, so you sure aren't getting anything good coming out of it, you know?
Well, that's the other thing, too. Is this is like that, but only instead of a negotiation, I've taken hostages. And when the police negotiator says, okay, well, what do you want? I'm like, shit. I don't know.
Maybe this hostage can tell me. What do I want?
What do I want?
What do I want?
That's what the cops are like, yeah, we're going to have to shoot this guy. We're going to be here forever. Oh, man. So that's a whole ridiculous thing. So I want to do one more bit real quick. So here's Fox News, Maria Bartiromo, and she's got a Republican, Jody Arrington. And he's going to talk about the cuts that he wants for the debt ceiling and the Republicans want on Fox News.
Joining me now to talk more about that is Texas Congressman, member of the House Ways and Means and Joint Committee, Economic Committee, Jody Arrington. Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being here. What are your hopes in terms of cuts in spending?
Well, my hopes are that we will not continue down this unsustainable path that we're on, which will lead to a debt crisis, which will be far worse than the pandemic, probably any other crisis we face. We have to rein in spending. We have to rein in spending. We have to reduce the debt, and we have to act responsibly and live within our means, like every American family, quite frankly, like every state and local government does. And this debt ceiling
Okay. Oh, we're gonna watch more of this because he gets way stupider.
Oh, good.
So we have a debt. Did you know we had a debt crisis? We have a debt crisis. We have to rein in our spending because the American government's like a household, not a government with taxing power. It's like a household.
Yeah, if my household had the ability to give itself a raise on an annual basis by however much I felt like it,
Yeah, well,
it doesn't work quite as simply as that. I know what we're simplifying,
Right.
but you know what I'm saying.
Right, but he misses that other. Well, we can raise taxes if that's what we need to do. But nope. We got to cut. We got to cut. We got to cut in our spending, right?
Right.
Okay. Well, what does he want to cut? Because he hasn't gotten to that. He's just saying we have a problem. We got to cut spending. Skips right past. Well, we could just raise taxes. We could just make the income tax what it was in the 1970s, and the highest marginal rate for people making whatever it is, $1 million or $2 million, whatever it is, right, would be 70% of their income, and that would solve a lot of problems. We could cut capital gains and make it ordinary income. We could do all these things, but nope, we skip that. We have to be responsible and cut. But what does he want to cut? Let's see if he gets to it. Come on, Jody. You can do it. You're from Texas.
Negotiation, like others in the past, is an opportunity to put a check on that debt and to include fiscal reforms. And there's plenty of waste, plenty of bloat, plenty of unnecessary spending throughout this federal government that has grown exponentially over the last couple of years.
But what are they, Jody? Come on, man.
Under this president, and that's my hope that the outcome will be a responsible one.
Well, I mean, look, the Republicans have talked about going back to 2022 spending levels. If you go back to 2022 spending levels, that is a decline in defense spending by $75 billion. Are you prepared to make that decline?
Oh, there's plenty of non-defense discretionary spending to cut.
So that's a no. I made that point just a minute ago. We take it back. We could cut defense by $75 billion. Well, there's other things we can cut. I don't know. We're not cutting that. Daddy still needs his guns because we're a household. So let's talk about how we can cut other stuff. You know, maybe we can cut Junior's medical care.
By the way, we've increased discretionary spending by $500 billion since 19. So, and then there's one-time spending, like there's $100 billion in unspent COVID monies. There's, the cancellation of student debt, which is could be as high as $1 trillion.
Okay, now that's a bullshit thing right there. So, student debt, even if you cancel it, student debt is already considered paid for. So it does not affect the budget in any way. You could cancel all the student debt, whatever it is, 1.5 or 6 or 7 trillion, whatever it is. It will not affect the overall debt in this country. It's already considered spent. It's already baked into the cake. So if he's talking about lowering that debt clock she's got on the side, canceling student debt won't do it. So that's bullshit. This guy clearly doesn't have a fucking clue how any of this works. But he's from Texas, so, we got to work with it.
So right now, we have people not working. As you know, this is a problem for the economy. It also is a problem for financing Social Security.
No, it's not, because we just increased jobs by over 500,000, where the expected was 188. So we're doing good.
Security and Medicare, and we need to put work incentives in place. That alone will create billions of dollars in savings, more tax revenue, and more support for these safety nets that our seniors.
I didn't understand that. We put work incentives in place, and that'll save billions. It'll cost billions, but it'll raise revenue.
Yeah,
ideally.
I wasn't following what his train of thought was there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's just.
Or did he say particularly what it was? So I don't know.
Yeah, I think he's just reading out the script at this point.
It might be just some random script of agenda points or whatever. He's just supposed to randomly try to string together. I don't know.
You're relying on. There are plenty of things outside of defense, and that's what we aim to focus on.
But we're not cutting defense. No, we're not going to mention Social Security or Medicare because those are no-nos now that Trump said something. But what are we going to cut? Food stamps? That'll save what? Fucking nothing. That's a cheap program. Oh, you know what we cut? Public education. That's what we always cut. Yeah, that'll be good. So anyway, that's the whole point, is they don't know what they're cutting. They don't know what they want.
Yeah, those teachers' salaries, they can afford to take a hit.
Yeah. Anyway, but that's the point. I mean, they're doing the debt ceiling thing, and what do you want? Basically, we just want to look like we're doing something and rally up our base. That's it. What are you actually doing? I don't know. We don't know. We're going to go after wokeism. CRT, or I don't know.
Right.
We want to change Potato Head back to Mr. Potato Head.